Good afternoon. It's great to see everyone here. It's my delight to thank you all for joining us this afternoon to celebrate the investiture of the appointments of Dr. Donna Pleccia as the Theodore J. Castele University Professor of Radiology and of Dr. Agata Exner as the Henry Wilson Payne professor. We have offspring of the Castele family, but for reasons I'll explain, I don't think we have offspring of the Henry Wilson Payne family with us this afternoon. So I want to congratulate the families of Dr. Pleccia and Dr. Exner for joining us this afternoon for this important milestone, and as I mentioned, an extensive family from the Castele family that are with us this afternoon. It's really an honor for a dean and for me, especially, to recognize these two extraordinary faculty who have a long-standing commitment and involvement here with our School of Medicine. Both are members of the Department of Radiology, where Dr. Pleccia is the chair, and Dr. Agata Exner has a dual appointment in radiology and in the Department of Biomedical Engineering, where she oversees the Division of Imaging Research and provides leadership across those two departments and even the school, as well as the Cancer Center. Dr. Pleccia is a graduate of our medical school and comes from a long lineage of family members who've graduated from our school and our university. Congratulations for that incredible honor and legacy. And I want to take a few moments to tell you a little bit about the professorships that we're going to be honoring today. Of course, as I've noted, I'm both proud and excited by the accomplishments of our two recipients today, and what we attempt to do with our endowed professorships is to recognize and retain our best talent and encourage others to come along as well, both as recipients and as donors. They're incredibly important. The concept of professorships is actually pretty special amongst universities. They date back many, many centuries. The first was the Regius Chair of Civil Law at Oxford University, bestowed by King Henry VIII. I'm not sure that kings have bestowed all of them since, but that certainly was the start of a good tradition. In the United States, the oldest goes all the way back to Harvard's Hollis Professorship in Mathematics and Natural Philosophy, established in 1721 at the Divinity School. It's now in the Department of Physics there and is held by Karen King. I'm not sure that Dr. Hollis would have imagined a woman would hold the chair at that time, and it's all the more terrific that we're honoring two women this afternoon. The oldest chair in our school is a scant 120 years ago. And I'm going to be mentioning the Hanna family. So Leonard C. Hanna Professorship was established in 1901 through a gift of Howard Melville Hanna in honor of his father. That chair is currently held by Ann Harris in the Department of Genetics. And the Hanna family helped us with our first three endowments. In 1906, they endowed the Hanna Payne Professorship in Experimental Medicine. That was the gift jointly of Howard Hanna and Oliver Payne, Henry Payne's brother. That chair was held appropriately by Dr. Nate Berger until his passing just a week and a half ago. And we noted that in obituaries and in his funeral just last week. But the second chair of the Hanna family was the Henry Wilson Payne Professorship, which is what we are celebrating this evening, established in 1903 through a gift of Howard Hanna in memory of his childhood friend, Henry Wilson Payne. And that one will be received by Agata Exner a little later this evening. The legacy of the Hanna family began with, as I mentioned, with Howard Hanna. So a little story about them. He was born in 1840, founded the M.A. Hanna Company, active in shipping in the Great Lakes, the development of oil, steel, tobacco. He then sold it off to Standard Oil and the Rockefeller family, also with traditions here in Cleveland. He also purchased controlling interest in Globe Iron Works, later became American Shipping Company. Again, in the heyday of that period for the city of Cleveland. He was quite interested in, and really began the city's tradition in philanthropy and reform as well, was the first president of the Charity Organization Society of Cleveland, and thought that he would coordinate his activities around scientific efforts and approaches, and therefore focused on universities, vulnerable populations, and the like. And his family was incredibly generous, giving to Lakeside Hospital and Rainbow and Children's Hospital, now parts of UH, of course, and to the School of Medicine, including the establishment of these professorships. Just as exciting for us is the Theodore J. Castele University Professorship in Radiology. That was established in 1990 through the gifts both of Dr. Ted Castele and his family, who are here with us this afternoon. And I want to tell you more about that, but we actually have a video, which I don't get to often show, so I think if we can roll that.
Dr. Ted Castele.
Affectionately known as Dr. Ted, Ted Castele was recognized for his extraordinary contributions to the health and welfare of Clevelanders and his long-standing support of Case Western Reserve University initiatives. Ted was born and raised in Western Pennsylvania. He enlisted in the Navy and began serving at the age of 18. When he completed his service, Ted attended Adelbert College of Western Reserve University. It was at a fraternity party here that he met his wife, Jean. They married in 1951, the same year that he graduated. Ted attended medical school at Western Reserve University, specializing in radiology. In 1975, he introduced the world to the concept of the television news physician as medical editor for Cleveland's WEWS-TV. But Ted worked just as hard behind the camera. He practiced at Lutheran Hospital, as well as St. John's West Shore and St. Vincent Charity Hospital. Later, he opened a medical office right here at Case Western Reserve. Dr. Ted was a tireless leader of the university. He served on the Board of Trustees and chaired a successful $300 million fundraising campaign for the School of Medicine.
You always need to have continuing medical education, and boy, there's no other place in the world you can get it better than right here at Case Western Reserve University.
One of Ted's many leadership roles at the university included co-chairing the campaign to help renovate the Alumni House. His level of extraordinary distinction earned him many awards. Among them was the university's Distinguished Alumnus Award in 2011.
I am just so excited and so delighted and so pleased and so proud of this award. And we have four graduates of Case Western Reserve University with us from our family. We just love this place.
Ted and Jean were married for 63 years until her death in 2014. They had 7 children, 18 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. Ted Castele will be dearly missed, but his countless contributions will continue to impact his profession, his community, and Case Western Reserve University.
I wish you good health and thank you for your support.
School, we certainly know and knew Ted as larger than life, and I'm delighted we were able to re-show that video. In fact, in 2017, shortly after he passed away, the school awarded him a Lifetime Achievement Award at our alumni annual meeting in the fall. And we're honored that a number of Ted's children are here with us today. If I get them all correct, I hope. Anne Marie Bill, Mary Kay Binder, Dan and his wife Monica, and John Castele and his wife Maureen. And Ted's grandson, Danny Binder, is a 2018 graduate, along with his wife Maggie Kinsley Binder, and they certainly are carrying on the next generation of his legacy, and we're going to look forward to the great-grandchildren when they're at that phase of life. So Howard Hanna and Ted Castele, through their, although they weren't contemporaries, certainly shared a passion both for the school and for the city and beyond, and having a grand impact on all of us, and I appreciate their long-standing support for our school. You will note that we're inducting 2 women faculty to endowed professorships this evening. You'll also note that I note a number of other women who have been so awarded. There are a total of 38 women faculty in the School of Medicine holding endowed professorships at this time, with a little over 100 endowed professorships that are currently filled, and I've got a few more to fill. So although we're not there yet, we are asymptoting towards about 50% of our professorships as appropriately women. These professorships recognized their individual and collective accomplishments, as well as their dedication to our faculty, our education programs, our community service, our research efforts, and really do help us pursue our mission to improve global health by linking research to populations in a superb educational environment, which is indeed the city of Cleveland, and recognizes the Faculty of Medicine of over 3,400 faculty. I would love to tell you more about Doctors Donna Plecha and Agata Exner, but I need to do that by turning over the podium first to Dan Simon, Jeff Sunshine, and then to Jim Basilian. So I'll ask Dan to come forward and we'll carry on. Thank you very much. Now, Dan is the president for Academic External Affairs and chief scientific officer for University Hospital's Health System, professor of medicine, and senior associate dean for academic affairs at the medical school, and holds the Ernie and Patty Novak Distinguished Chair in Healthcare Leadership. He has been instrumental in leading the school's University Hospitals program and faculty through their a combination of efforts to heal, to teach, and discover, and he has primary responsibility for the academic affiliations of the hospital-based faculty with Case Western, with Oxford University Neomed, and the Technion Israel Institute of Technology. He also oversees in his spare time the activities of the Harrington Discovery Institute and its accomplishments at University Hospital. So I'll let him introduce Dr. Plecha. Thank you.
It is a pleasure to welcome you here this evening for this special investiture ceremony for the Theodore J. Castele University Professorship in Radiology and the Henry Wilson Payne Professorship at Case Western Reserve University. Our CEO, Dr. Cliff McGarrion, wish he was here today, but we are tag teaming 2 simultaneous award events this afternoon. It is truly an honor and privilege to participate with Dean Gerson in acknowledging the accomplishments of 2 illustrious and renowned academic leaders, Dr. Donna Plecha and Professor Agata Exner. Endowed positions represent prestige, leadership, and great responsibility for our distinguished chairholders. These perpetual funds enhance basic and clinical discovery and medical education, both of which are essential to the future of medicine. I can think of no others more deserving of these honors and investitures as the Castele University professor and the Henry Wilson Payne professor than Dr. Plecha and Professor Exner. Your work as radiologists, imaging, and radiation medicine researchers is literally saving lives. We applaud your dedication and are thrilled to celebrate this career milestone with each of you. Dr. Plecha and Professor Exner have developed a transformative vision for radiology research at Case Western and UH with over $49.4 million in extramural research funding to the CWRU Center for Imaging Research since 2021, with over $7.8 million in new grants in 2023 alone and 98 impactful publications. Donna and Agata, I am so very proud of you. Now, it is an honor and privilege to call on Dr. Jeffrey Sunshine, Vice Chairman, Department of Radiology, UH Cleveland Medical Center, and Professor of Radiology, Case Western, to the podium to formally introduce Dr. Plecha. Jeff.
Good afternoon, and I'll add my welcome to everybody, and it's a pleasure to follow Dean Gerson and Dr. Dan Simon. Didn't write that on the piece of paper. First of all, to the family of the Castelles, thank you so much for what this represents for the university and for the Department of Radiology. It's my honor, it's my pleasure to spend a few minutes to introduce my long colleague and well-served leader, Dr. Donna Plecha, who is chair of the Department of Radiology. Between the two of us, we cannot count, we choose not to count how many decades we have served the department, but it's getting to be extraordinary. What I will say as I introduce her this afternoon for the Theodore J. Castele University Professorship of Radiology this evening, I'm told often that Dr. Castele said it's not just a professorship, it's a university professorship, and therefore it costs more money and it's worth more impact, which Donna richly deserves. So thank you for his spirit. I will say that Dr. Plecha follows Dr. Castele as a widely energetic leader. She believes in sharing with many and visibly the value of medicine and particularly imaging and radiology. Some accomplishments of Dr. Plecha already. She's a full professor of radiology in the School of Medicine at Case Western Reserve University. She holds the Ida and Irwin Haber and Wei Shin Chin, MD, Chair of Radiology at the University Hospitals. She has been named Teacher of the Year multiple times. She has been named Top Doctor in Radiology since 2013 every year. She is a University Hospital's Distinguished Physician, and most recently in 2023, she was named an Exceptional Woman in Medicine, all well deserved. I'd like to share that Dr. Donna Plecha exhibits three linked leadership levers evident to all. First, as a clinician, she remains dedicated to the diagnosis and the treatment of a leading malady that remains even today, that is breast cancer. As an extraordinary mammographer, she has led the development and then wide deployment and adoption of 3D tomography, which was then the new standard of care, now widely adopted throughout the country and throughout the world. More recently, Dr. Plecha has developed the next generation of leadership in mammography here and nationally, and through those and others, now contributes to the next dawning standard, which is likely to be the use of magnetic resonance imaging for appropriate evaluation of breast disease and guidance of treatment. Let me share some additional evidence of her ongoing impact found in activities as a member of the advisory panel for breast cancer screening and diagnosis of the National Comprehensive Cancer Network, a position held since 2018 ongoing. She has also long been a primary investigator in a master research agreement sponsored by Hologic, the leading manufacturer of breast imaging equipment globally, and she has had that since 2012. The second readily apparent attribute Dr. Plecha exhibits as leader of our large department, sharing that that's more than 100 faculty and more than 1,400 staff, Dr. Plecha remains steadfast in driving the future leaders to their success, especially for women in medicine. In her time, we've had inaugural and now wide participation in our ongoing Women in Radiology programs, which support trainees and both young and experienced faculty. Dr. Plecha has promoted many and then mentored them steadfastly to enable success here and impressively in national programs as well. As with all who lead the way, the path continues to be more clear for the many who follow her. Some examples: just recently she was elected as the chair of chairs amongst our peers at the institutions. Importantly, she has significantly mentored more than 20 students and fellows along their career paths, and she has contributed more than 50 peer-reviewed articles to our wide literature. The third attribute I'd like to share is a clear continuum from the first two. Dr. Donna Plecha is, in her own words, all about the people. We've often used that phrase for our large department, and it can be best seen and led as a professional family. It's a guiding truth we use as we shape what we do in the department. Indeed, though, for her, it's really natural and her only way. It was not conjured, it is of herself. Beyond the professional attributes, there remains the unending dedication for her family, in particular her sons, and of course her husband, Fred. Themes that may come together and tie back to Dr. Castele himself. Dr. Plecha has given more than 100 local, national, and international talks and media representations so that education can be shared, developed, and extended throughout our communities, our professions, and the care necessary to provide health for many. It is inspirational. And if you will allow me to share in a closing moment on Dr. Plecha's optimistic attitude. She seeks to share a smile. Perhaps I haven't said that sufficiently strong. She demands to find the optimistic. She pursues and draws along the path of greater good. And it is my honor and pleasure to introduce Dr. Donna Plecha as the Theodore J. Castele University Professor in Radiology.
Wow, I might as well just sit down because I think Jeff just gave my talk, so thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that very warm introduction from someone that we've worked together a long time and really appreciate his partnership. And I think the leadership of the department is so much stronger with us together than with either one of us separately, so thank you. Today I'm going to talk about sustainable impact, and I think we've heard a lot of that theme already from Dean Gerson, Dan, and Jeff Sunshine. And I think thinking about what I've done in the past, the people I've worked with, and the impact I see in the future, and the impact that Ted Castele's had on me and his family has had on me. I know his family, and we'll get to that later. But it just impresses me that the impact that you can have with a domino effect going forward on your patients, on the people you work with, and training the trainees coming forward just makes it that much more fun being a leader. So this is kind of my journey from the time I graduated from medical school. I was the only person in my family that became a physician. My parents were very proud of that. I came and entered the family, the Plecha family. That's my husband, Fred, giving me my degree when I graduated from medical school here at Case Western. His father was the first physician in his family. He had two, his son and his daughter both became physicians and graduated from Case Western. He had two nephews that graduated from Case Western School of Medicine, myself, and my brother-in-law. So all of them were our alums at Case Western, and it was a thrill to get my degree from my husband. And those are my parents with me the day I graduated from the School of Medicine. So that was the beginning of my journey. And I had kind of a long pause before I started my, I would say, my academic career. And once I did, and once my kids were a little bit older and I was full-time and I became the division chief of the breast division, I'm a breast radiologist, I just had a lot of fun being active and working with others in the department. When I graduated from the school, I actually graduated with honors in dermatology. I thought I was going to be a Mohs surgeon. So that's what my special award was at the time of graduation, but changed my mind a couple of months before and decided to become a radiologist. So when I became a radiologist, I subspecialized in breast imaging. Like I said, it took a good 10 years before I started my academic career. And the one thing that really sparked my interest was the 3D tomography that Jeff talked about, tomosynthesis. I had a relationship early on with Hologic, which is the company that is the leader in this technology. I was able to work with the company to bring some of this technology to university hospitals before it became FDA approved. I was part of the research to start the FDA approval, was part of a multi-site study looking at over 500,000 studies across the country at 13 different sites. We used both private practice sites, we used academic sites, and we worked together to look at the difference between a regular mammogram and these new 3D mammograms. And for those in the audience who don't know what that is, a mammogram may just be one image, but this was multiple images. It's like taking slices of a bread, almost like a CAT scan. So we could see through the tissue, we could find cancers we had never seen before. And we could actually decide, well, this patient doesn't need to come back for further imaging. I'm sure the women in the audience understand what it means when you get that call back from a mammogram and you're all worried that you have breast cancer. We actually decreased those false positive. We decreased those amounts of women who had to come back for those recalls. So we not only found more cancers, we also decreased the negative of those callbacks. So we made a huge impact on screening for breast cancer. We decreased our false positives by 15%, and we increased invasive cancer detection by 41%. And that's important because you really want to find those cancers that are going to kill your patients and not the ones that are very slow growing, indolent, and you can wait a little time to find those cancers. So this was a huge impact on screening for breast cancer. This was the first and the largest study in the United States, and it was in the premier journal, JAMA. Changed the way we screen today in the United States and the world. Thank you. Thank you. After we did this study, we actually then started working on trying to get CMS to pay for this new study because it costs more. And so when we first came out with this, patients had to pay for it. So of course we had a differential for those patients who could pay versus those patients who couldn't pay. So then we went to Congress. I went to DC with the group, went and lobbied Congress, visited different offices, and we were able to garner support for CMS to cover. And then after that, we worked with insurance companies to get coverage for this new 3D mammogram. It made sense to pay for this because actually we're decreasing cost and increasing value. We had less callbacks, we had less extra studies that were not necessary, so it actually cost insurance companies and CMS less. And we were finding those cancers earlier, so actually treating those cancers was less expensive. And today, the majority of screening in the US is with this tomosynthesis machine. Very proud of that. Next, to move on, we wanted to find an even better way to find cancers earlier, especially, again, those that kill. So the ones that kill are very rapid growing. They are very easy to find if you give some kind of IV contrast. If we give IV contrast, we can do that right now and now get a mammogram with IV contrast. But in the past, the main way to do this is with an MRI scanner. And MRIs are very expensive. If you get an MRI test, it can cost over $1,000. So there was a woman radiologist in Germany that came out with the first paper in 2014 saying, well, why don't we do an MRI exam that only takes 5 to 10 minutes? It has to be under 10 minutes, still give the contrast, can be much less expensive. University Hospital is one of the first ones to offer this clinically, and we actually now only charge $250, thanks to people like Dan Simon, who helped us do this. By doing that, it's more accessible for patients. There are patients who are at high risk that can't afford an MRI that costs over $1,000. So this is a very inexpensive way to screen, the most sensitive way to screen patients. And so I've worked on research to back this up. It's less costly. And we were part of a national study through ECOG Akron that compared this to the 3D mammography, and we were able to increase cancer detection by 2 to 3 times. We have now worked with different national societies, both the American College of Radiology and the NCCN that Jeff was referring to, as well as the American Society of Breast Surgeons. This is now recommended as a way to screen patients that are at higher risk, medium risk, or even someone who's at normal risk but has dense breasts, because we're going to have a much easier time finding these cancers early and small. And when you can find them early and small, you're much more likely to cure them, and cure them with less toxic therapies and sooner. So we started offering this clinically in 2018. The number of patients that we're able to screen with this has increased exponentially, and I'm very excited that we're able to offer that here at UH. These are just some of the things that I've been able to achieve when I was a breast radiologist and in charge of the breast radiology division. As Jeff mentioned, I'm on the National Cancer Comprehensive Cancer Network. This is a national group that comes up with screening and diagnostic guidelines yearly. I'm also part of the American College of Radiology Screening Leadership Group that also comes out with screening guidelines. Also part of the Emerging Technologies Committee that does things like foster the MRI, fast screening MRI. I'm also part of the BI-RADS auditing writing group. The BI-RADS is basically our Bible that tells us how to practice as a breast radiologist. So I help write the new BI-RADS that's hopefully coming out later this year or early next year. I've been asked to be a fellow in the Society of Breast Imaging. Once you reach a certain level of research and clinical impact, they ask you to become a fellow. Was on an abbreviated MRI expert panel through the American College of Radiology, was a program director for the American Röntgen Ray Society, which is another national society. So I've been at a national level, have a reputation that I am able to help move the way we practice medicine for breast radiology. So really thankful for all of the people I've met on a national level, and the fact that we're able to influence the way we practice medicine here in the US. Since I became chair of the department, and I will share that Jeff and I are absolute partners in leading the department. We've done this ever since we were interims together. We've been able to bring in over $50 million in research grants since 2021, when you count the ones that we've been able to garner this year, in addition to what Dan mentioned before. We have 5 faculty that are distinguished investigators in the National Academy of Radiology and Imaging Research, one of which happens to be Dr. Agata Exner, as well as Dr. Jim Basilian, who will be introducing Dr. Agata Exner today. We have a large master research agreement with DASA in Brazil, because one of our recruits that we were able to bring in from Brazil. We are a leader in artificial intelligence and innovation at our department. Dr. Amit Gupta, sitting in the audience here, who's been a very early adapter and has worked with many companies to bring artificial intelligence into our department before any other department, as well as Dr. Leo Kayat Bittencourt, who also leads us in artificial intelligence. We have made great strides in diversity, equity, and inclusion in our department, have, to Jeff's point, been able to recruit young researchers like Dr. Sadegari sitting in the back row back there, as well as promoting and working with the Vice Chair of Basic Science Research, Dr. Agata Exner within the department. We have more women leaders within the department than ever, and have been able to have more women promoted within the department than ever in our history, which is absolutely one of my goals. So I'm going to get to my thank yous. Dr. Jeff Sunshine, has been an absolute pleasure leading the department with you. We've had a great time. And this professorship and the endowment that goes with it, we decide together how to invest this, how to make the department better, try to support the tripartite mission that we have to heal, to teach, to discover. And part of this helps us retain and recruit some of the brightest that we have, including Dr. Exner. Dr. Exner and I are partners to figure out how we're going to spend our endowment to further the research within the department and the education to bring the young forward to take our place in the future. I'd like to thank the women in my life, my executive administrator, Margaret Hendry, who's sitting in the back of the room, keeps me honest, keeps me on time, and keeps me where I need to be at all times. The women chair, my fellow women chairs, I'm sorry Dr. Jean LeCamp didn't make it this evening, but she's in the audience. Thank you for being here. Absolute source of support and a brain trust that I couldn't replace, and just love being part of this group. So thank you, Dr. Simon, for recruiting the women in this group. Thank you. And last but not least, my family. I always say God knew what she was doing when she gave me 3 boys. Absolutely love having a family full of boys. This is our family vacation a couple of years ago in Hawaii. And my partner in life, Fred Plecha, thank you for all your support. For me, family is first, and that leads me to the Castele family. Now, I know the Castele family because my father-in-law, Fred Plecha, and Ted Castele were very close friends. And they actually went to medical school together. I'm not sure if they were in the same, a couple years apart, but not in the same class. And Ted Castele was part of TV Ted. He was part of Channel 5. And Channel 5 had half of a loge at the Indian Stadium. They were the Indians at the time. And the other half was shared by a couple of physicians, one of which was my father-in-law. And so we would share the loge with them. And the family sitting in front of us, in front of me here, would bring their kids, and we would bring our kids. So we would see each other in the loge, cheer on the Indians, and our kids would play together all the time. So we've known each other for many years, and I'm very grateful that you all showed up tonight to share this with me tonight. Ted was a radiologist who actually recruited me when I was almost done with my training. I had a contract at home and almost signed it, and then got an offer from John Haga and ended up staying here at University Hospitals. Ted actually trained as a resident here at University Hospitals, so I'm thrilled to have his professorship to have his university professorship, So Ted, we've seen these pictures before, TV Ted. I remember him on TV. He was very much the opposite of his wife, who was very quiet and very reserved, and he loved being on camera. He liked to say that he made more than 1 billion house calls in his job as a radiologist over 25 years, starting in 1975. I want to thank Ted Castele and his family. He was a trustee at Case Western, as Dr. Dean Gerson said. He spearheaded a $300 million campaign and had his own office at Case. I think you could see from the video that was shared, he was larger than life, had a huge personality. He was the first doctor in Ohio to receive the American Medical Association's Benjamin Rush Award. And this was for his contributions to the community in citizenship and public service. He was on multiple boards. He has donated across Cleveland and has left a lasting legacy and a huge impact. And I think it just goes along with the theme of my presentation today, is to leave a good impact. And Jeff's nickname for me is polypositive. Yes, I am very positive. I always try to look at the bright side and try to leave a positive impact behind me. So I just want to thank the family and thank Dr. Ted Castele for his lasting impact. Thank you.
So now you can see why it's such a joy for a dean to be up here and do the easy part of introducing. So we will come back to Dr. Plecha and the chair, but let me first move on to Jim Basilian, who will introduce Dr. Agata Exner to the stage. Dr. Basilian is a very accomplished physician scientist in his own right, professor in departments of biomedical engineering and radiology, and co-leader with Dr. Exner of the cancer imaging program in the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center. Jim.
I think I just got a promotion as a physician scientist. I'm a PhD scientist, but I'll take it and the pay that goes with it. No, I'm joking. It's wonderful to be here and to celebrate with all of you such an auspicious occasion. And I just want to thank all of you for coming today, especially bringing attention to the family of Agata Exner sitting here in the middle. So that's quite wonderful. It's my pleasure and honor to introduce Dr. Agata Exner for her investiture ceremony as the chairholder of the Henry Wilson Payne Professorship. I've known Agata for almost 19 years. For almost all of the 19 years I've been here at Case Western, and I've worked closely with her as a collaborator for over 10 of those years. She is both a friend and a colleague and a very good scientist. Perhaps one of the most notable qualities and one of the most important aspects of our friendship is that she's a foodie. We have collaborated many times on which restaurants to go to. Agata, Goma is my new favorite. As many of you know, I'm of Greek descent, as I tell most people this in the first 2 minutes I meet them. And just now got a whole bunch more in the 2-minute time deadline. In Greek, there is a word that describes people who weren't receiving accolades as Agata is getting today. That word is axios, and it means worthy. Dr. Exner is homegrown. She got all of her undergraduate, master, and PhD degrees, all in biomedical engineering, here at Case Western. She became a full tenured professor of radiology and biomedical engineering at Case in 2015. She's a leader, and she's driving science in new and novel directions. She currently holds several positions within Case Western, university hospitals, and worldwide. She's the director of the Case Center for Imaging Research. She's the founding director of the Division of Radiology Research. She's the vice chair for Basic Radiology Research, and she's the co-director of the Cancer Imaging Program, and is changing the way science is done within the imaging program as well. She's a senior associate director of the Medical Scientist Training Program. She's the visiting professor of the Center for Molecular Physics at the University of Orleans in France. So that's probably good for the foodie part. She's an adjunct professor at the Department of Physics at Ryerson University in Toronto, Canada, and one of her colleagues has come down to join us today. And she's the visiting professor at Jagiellonian, I'm sure I said that wrong, University of Krakow, Poland. Going to her research efforts, Dr. Agata Exner has pioneered the development of long-circulating ultrasound-responsive targeted nanobubbles for biomedical applications such as cancer diagnosis, treatment, companion diagnostics, and ultrasound-mediated therapy. She's currently forming Visano Imaging, a company devoted to translating these discoveries into clinical use. She's changing the world both at the research level and at the clinical level. Dr. Exner has run a continuously NIH-funded lab for over 20 years and holds 7 current grants. She's elected as a senior member of the National Academy of Inventors. She is a fellow at the American Institute for Medical and Biomedical Engineering. She's a distinguished investigator of the Academy of Radiology Research, and her list goes on and on. Among some of her other achievements, she's been elected to chair the Gordon Conference on Ultrasound Technologies. It's one of the premier places where the scientists gather and create new technologies. She's a standing member and co-chair of the Gene and Drug Development Study Section for the NIH, and she's also ad hoc on many other study sections. She reviews grants not only domestically, but also she's on other funding agencies outside of the United States and in the world. She has significant teaching activities at the university, both in the classroom and within the lab. Notably, she has mentored over 23 postdocs and research associates here at Case and worldwide. She has mentored 27 graduate students, both MD and medical candidates. And she has also mentored over 55 undergraduate and high school students. She's mentored several faculty, and she's given over 90 invited lectures and seminars all around the world. And finally, she has over 130 peer-reviewed papers, 5 book chapters, 5 patents, both issued and pending, and has significant press coverage on all of her research. With these lists of activities, honors, and achievements, while they're all very important, I would venture to say that they're not the most important items that make the stellar scientist that she is. What is most important is the intangible elements of the human essence. Being a whole human is the most important achievement that one can make in their life and impacts their careers and, in my opinion, Agata's achievements in science. Agata possesses empathy. She appreciates her fellow humans and is always there for them. I have seen her mentor her students with a loving hand, providing each exactly what they needed, moving past the formality of a university professor and acting as a caring friend. She has endured the tribulations of life, but never wavered from her empathetic outreach to all. Agata was there for me during difficult periods in my own personal life, sharing her experiences and helping to a resolution. This is what makes her a great person and a stellar scientist. I respect and praise Agata Exner for both her excellent science and her humanity. It gives me great joy today to add my personal accolades to her investiture. Axios.
It was going well until the very end. Huh? Thank you, Jim, for those kind words, and thank you, Dr. Simon, Dean Gerson. Congratulations, Dr. Plecha. And thank you, everybody, for coming out today. This is really a special day for both of us, and I'm so happy to see my friends, my colleagues, and my family, 2 worlds that don't often collide, all in one room. So this is really exciting. Let me tell you a little bit about me. So some of you may recognize this location. Do you guys recognize it? Yes? Okay. This is Tomlinson. It's right on the engineering quad, and this is my first time that I visited Case Western with my mom, my brother, and my dad, who was taking a photo, and this was back in either 1993 or 94. We couldn't agree on it. So this was my campus interview, my first campus visit, and it was really a seminal moment in my life, in my entire adult life, because I came here and then I never left. I liked it so much right away. So it was fun to reflect on what the world was like in 94. Bill Clinton was president. There was no internet. The World Wide Web was just actually introduced, and Netscape came about. Jeff Bezos founded Amazon. Imagine life without Amazon, right? This was 30 years ago. But most importantly, biomedical engineering was starting, but it was still in its infancy. And BME is really why I came here. It was at the time when I was graduating from high school, one of only 6 programs in the country. No one really knew what to do with us. No one knew what it was, but I somehow got it in my head that this is what I wanted to do. I came because Dr. Seidel, who was the chair of BME at the time, called me at my home and said, we read your application and we would really love it if you came to our program. And that was a really great recruitment strategy, I'll tell you. I don't think we do that anymore, but it worked really well. So I came, and I wanted to do applied science. I liked science, I liked math, I liked chemistry, I liked it all, but I'm a very pragmatic and practical person for all of you who know me. And so being able to use those skills to make new tools that can then impact healthcare and help physicians do their jobs was really something that I wanted to do from the very beginning. So the world has changed in 30 years. The quad hasn't actually changed very much. It is changing now, though. We are getting a new science and engineering building, so it's going to look very different in a couple years. All right, so when I came, I did not know that I was signing up for the premium case experience. I got to experience life as an undergraduate, as a graduate student, as a faculty, and as an administrator. Imagine that. So it's been quite a ride, but all of these stages were so different, and they taught me all of very distinct fields and areas, and they really captured the way that I run my lab today and the kind of research that we do today, and the kind of administrator that I hope to be in the future. So it was a variety of experiences, even though I stayed right here at Case. I wanted to point out that one of the things that I find wonderful about this university is the ability to be able to do research at the interfaces of different fields. So BME inherently is interdisciplinary, right? You're talking about math and chemistry and physics, biochemistry, polymer science, all mashed up into one, electrical engineering. And I think Case Western really embodies the spirit of BME throughout its campus. And so I found it very inspirational to be able to do all kinds of research and think of new ideas here with this ecosystem. My research interests at a very early stage, I must have heard about it in class as an undergrad, but I really was bothered by this idea of getting drugs, chemotherapy drugs, into tumors in patients without affecting the rest of the body. And this sounds like a really straightforward problem, but I think all of you in this room know that it is not a straightforward problem. There have been hundreds of thousands of researchers that have worked on this problem for decades, many decades, and it's still not solved. We're doing better, but we did not solve this problem yet. And I'm sure as an undergrad, I thought, this will be great. I'll go into this, I'll have this wonderful invention. That'll be a huge impact. And we're working towards it. We're getting there, but I think there's still a long way to go. So I just wanted to give you a little snippet of the inspiration. For my graduate work, I actually worked with polymers and long-acting drug delivery systems. And so what that means is that you can take a material, you can mix it with drug, and you can make an implant or injectable solution, and you can put that solution directly into a tumor. And in this way, you're getting all of the drug directly to the tumor site. You're not injecting things intravenously. You can put 100% of the injected dose essentially into the tumor. So at the time when I was doing my PhD, between 1998 and 2003, no one was doing this. This is a totally new idea. It was pioneered by my PI at the time, Jinming Gao, and yet there was still a problem because no one really knew we had these wonderful implants, but how do we take these implants and put them into the body? If you have to open up a patient, you have to put the implant in a tumor, the oncologist or the surgeon is going to just take the tumor out. And so in walked Dr. Haga. So Dr. Haga was the chair of radiology at the time I was doing my PhD, and you heard Dr. Plecha say that he recruited her. He recruited me as well to this. So I think he's had really huge impact. He is a visionary interventional radiologist. He actually pioneered the idea of an image-guided biopsy, so a CT-guided biopsy. When you go in there and you sample tissue out, this was his idea. And so he started working with my group, with Dr. Gao, and he suggested the idea of if we can take stuff out, why don't we put stuff in? So using the same interventional oncology, or I guess what is known as interventional oncology right now, but interventional radiology tools, we were able to develop this image-guided drug delivery. And so you may have heard this buzzword. It's a pretty common term right now. But 20 years ago, no one was doing this stuff. So he not only pioneered image-guided biopsies, but I think he also pioneered, together with our group, this idea of image-guided drug delivery. And then if you extend this, you mash up polymer science, biochemistry, molecular biology, Jim's expertise, diagnostic radiology, and you get what we work on now, which is nanomedicine-based theranostics. So I will tell you a little bit about that. But first, some firsts. So along these lines, we were really the first, as I mentioned, to build these CT and actually ultrasound-guided delivery systems for interventional oncology. And it didn't really catch on at the time. So I think timing is so crucial when it comes to research, when it comes to impact in general. But guess what? 20 years later, it is catching on. So with immunotherapy, there are many different strategies now for delivery locally into tumors of checkpoint inhibitors, let's say. And Johnson & Johnson, a couple years, reached out to me and said, hey, we have this great idea. We're going to use imaging, and we're going to make long-acting implants, and we're going to cure lung cancer. Can you help us consult with it? And I said, sure. We came up with this idea 20 years ago, but I think it's a great direction. So it was a 20-year overnight success. I think now that big pharma is involved, things are going to go very quickly in this area. But it's nice to have been at the forefront of that. And then more recently, we also developed the first cancer cell-targeted ultrasound contrast agents together with Jim, so I'll tell you a little bit about that. And then very interestingly, in 2010, because we were already doing this unique mashup of imaging and biomaterial research, we also developed first non-destructive, non-invasive biomaterial characterization techniques. So still today, if you're doing biomaterials research, if you're working with generation of tissues or drug delivery, people put these implants in, they do histology after they sack the animal, and they look at tissue at a single time point. There's no longitudinal data, there's no physiology, there's really very little information that you can get from this. And so we developed imaging techniques to get more information, and I think that's going to catch on too. Okay, so now onto the stuff I'm really comfortable with. That is our research. And so let me just give you a 10,000-foot view of what we do with nanobubbles. But first, let me step back a little further. So a few years ago, I became really, more aware than I had been in the past about how terrible access to diagnostic imaging is throughout the world. So globally, I knew it was bad, but I didn't know it was this bad. 2/3 of the world's population does not have access to medical imaging. Imagine that, right? That's almost 70%. And yet, with the remaining 3.6 billion diagnostic scans are performed each year, and we know that 75% of all of the issues that are out there right now globally that end up being potentially lethal could be easily diagnosed after a simple, straightforward imaging exam. There's a lot of very interesting data out there. And so if you look at resources in high-income countries, which is us and Western Europe and some others, there is huge access to medical technologies. CT is number one, and ultrasound, interestingly, follows. But you can imagine that if you're a resource-depleted area or region, that access is drastically reduced. So in fact, again, a shocking figure, if you live in a high-income country, 25,000 patients are roughly served by one CT scanner. I thought that was already kind of high, but then if you look at low-income countries, it's 1.7 million, right? So the idea that a CT is very simple to us, you can run and get one pretty much anywhere you want. It is not so in parts of the United States even, and in most of the world. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because I think that ultrasound technology can help bridge this gap. Ultrasound is out there already. It's an incredibly mature technology. It's been around since the 50s, where you literally had to put a person in a bathtub of water to take an ultrasound image. And in 70 years, it has come this far. So that is a portable point-of-care ultrasound system that's run by your iPhone. So no resources really needed except for some batteries. You can take them anywhere. They're incredibly portable, and you can get critical imaging data for your patients. I think that is underappreciated in the world today. But I think we can do even better. So most of you are familiar with these gray, grainy images. Contrast ultrasound is so much better. So check out these images. These are blood vessels of the brain done with contrast media on board with your typical diagnostic ultrasound. These images are impressive. And so I think that if we work hard to develop the right contrast agents for ultrasound, we can replace a lot of the diagnostic imaging modalities today. Imagine doing PET without a contrast agent. Impossible, right? So I think the same thing can happen with ultrasound. Okay, we're running long, but let me just give you a little peek at what we do with bubbles. So for ultrasound, contrast agents are in existence, they're used clinically, and they're called microbubbles, about the size of a red blood cell. And they're amazing. They're little, literally what it sounds like, a gas bubble that can oscillate when you put it in an ultrasound field, just like that. And what that does is that scatters ultrasound in a different way, and the echoes from these bubbles are much different than the rest of your body. So the images have much greater definition, much better contrast, easier to diagnose, more detail to see. But these are big, big bubbles. They stay in the blood vessels, which is great. But what we want to do is combine nanomedicine and all the exciting power that comes with that and these features of microbubbles. So our work has been on nanobubbles, which are much, much smaller. And so again, timing is everything. This is not, as you heard, that wasn't the focus of our lab for many, many years. I had a postdoc that came, started playing around with these bubbles. It was a project that simmered around in the background. We didn't have any funding. And then in 2011, we actually got engaged with Toshiba Medical through the radiology department, through our clinical colleagues, Nami Azar, Dean Nakamoto, who were doing research with them. And these guys at Toshiba were extremely excited about the agents that we were developing. They said, we'll fly you down, come to Redmond, and we can do some scans. And so we did. And that was extremely exciting for 3 years or 4 years when Toshiba actually closed its doors. They were acquired by Canon, and they closed their U.S. operation. So I thought, well, that was fun. But what that experience really taught us is that we had the material expertise, but what we were really missing is the acoustics and the imaging and the physics expertise. Because again, at these interfaces of fields, right, you can be really good in one area, but know nothing about the other area, and that drastically reduces the impact of your research. And so timing is everything. And in 2016, we found the expertise. So I wanted to show these pictures because you see that nice young Chinese gentleman. This was Yuan-Yi, and Yuan-Yi was the person that liked nanobubbles, that had the vision that nanobubbles could become a really impactful technology in ultrasound. So he pushed me to push on with this field, and he invited me to a conference in China where I met 4 of the world's foremost experts in ultrasound, contrast-enhanced ultrasound. So including my closest collaborator, Mike Kolyos, who's sitting right there, and he's pictured there. So it was a really fortuitous meeting, and Michael and I have been working together ever since, and I think it's really enriched the research on both our sides. So timing is everything. In terms of specific applications, Jim and I have been working on targeted bubbles for prostate cancer detection. We hope to guide biopsies of prostate cancer to tumors using these bubbles and ultrasound that's already used. We have really good sensitivity of detection. And he mentioned that I am starting a company. It's actually us. We are starting a company together, Visano Theranostics. And so hopefully you'll see a commercial version of this contrast agent soon. Some of the newest research, we're working with David Wald, who's an immunologist here. Many of you know David, for using bubbles to visualize CAR T cells. So when CAR T cells get into the body, they probably don't go to solid tumors very well, or they may go and not stay. No one really knows because there are no techniques right now to visualize what's happening with the CAR T cells. And so a few years back, David and I thought, wouldn't it be fun if we could label the cells with the bubbles, and then we can use ultrasound. You can see it, the penetration is deep. These bubbly cells would be very, very large, so they would give you very strong echoes. And so we've been working on this, and I think it can really be a groundbreaking technology and a tool to help propel CAR T cells and adoptive cell therapies in general for solid tumors. And so it works a little bit, so we're pursuing that and just trying to get funding for this project. And then finally, I think it's, again, we're kind of circling back to this drug treatment of tumors. But, we have bubbles, they're responsive. you can actually pop these bubbles if the ultrasound pressures are high enough. And so if you can get the bubbles in the cell and pop them in the cell, that creates very local, very targeted, very focused effects that causes cancer cells to die, or your target cells, but leaves normal cells alone. And you don't even need a drug. So maybe the drug delivery idea doesn't actually even need to be solved, because maybe we can just have drug-free, non-invasive cancer therapy. So this is a treatment that we're pursuing as well. So we've had we have a good fortune to have great collaborators globally, actually. We work with people, as Jim mentioned, in Poland and in France, in Canada quite a bit, and all the way as far as Thailand and China. We've had funding from a lot of great sponsors. And so I'm very grateful for that. I was asked to speak about the impact of this professorship. So there are really two areas where I think these funds are going to contribute to our research. First, as I mentioned, we are always looking for new applications. And so working with collaborators and colleagues throughout the university, finding the nooks and crannies in the areas that haven't yet been touched by nanobubbles or impacted, I think is going to be an incredible use of these funds to help us spark new research, to pilot new grants, to support trainees in these areas. And so we're finding these nooks and crannies. We're working in immuno-oncology. We're working in type 1 diabetes, to try and detect and treat type 1 diabetes. Most recently, we're engaging with nutrition to use bubbles to diagnose lead poisoning, and perhaps even to use them as chelators to treat lead poisoning. So there are all kinds of applications that I'm sure we haven't thought of that I'm going to use these funds for. And then I also, as someone mentioned, I direct the Case Western Center for Imaging Research along with Catherine Gollett, who's sitting right back there. Hello. Catherine is the executive director, and she does all of the really hard work. And we've pushed very hard for the past year and a half or 2 years to raise the visibility of imaging. We have amazing imaging scientists throughout the greater Cleveland area, actually, at the university, at our clinical affiliates, and many other places. And so we're trying to put together a consortium that leverages all this expertise and makes Cleveland an imaging hub, a well-known imaging hub. And so these funds are also going to be very useful to help with center activities. Okay, so for my thank yous, thank you to Henry Wolf Payne and his descendants and his friend Howard Hanna, who had the vision to give the School of Medicine the very first endowed chair to the school. I think that is an amazing accomplishment. Thank you to my lab. Some of them are here today, and they work extremely hard. They do really all the work so that I can stand up here and talk about it. So I'm really grateful for all of their efforts. Thank you to all my mentors, colleagues, collaborators. It's been 30 years, so I couldn't fit everyone on there. But this is just a snippet of the folks who have affected my life in amazing ways. Thank you, Dr. Plecha and Dr. Kirsch, for supporting me. Thank you, Dr. Harding, for being a mentor to me as well. Thank you, Dean Gerson. And thank you to everybody else who has impacted my life. Thank you to our collaborators. We work with all of these wonderful folks, and we really couldn't do our work by ourselves. And finally, thank you to my family. I know that you maybe didn't sign up for this. A scientific career is not really a job, it's more of a lifestyle. So I appreciate you bearing with me and supporting me throughout the last 30 years. I know that I can be stubborn. Over here, that's called determined, but I think in your world, stubborn is how you would refer to it. So thank you for being patient with me and your support, and love you guys. Thank you again.
I hope you're all as energized as I have been by these two remarkable women and their accomplishments, and it is now time for us to celebrate. So as is perfectly clear, I think to everyone in the room, and that professorship is very special for all of us here at the School of Medicine and our institutions that we represent. And they really do represent our best and our brightest in our efforts to support them throughout their entire career. So I'll ask Donna to come back up, and Agata, find your chair. Agata's on the left, so Donna's on the right. And I'm going to ask Dan to come back up and Bob Kirsch to come back up as well as our academic support leaders for these two incredible individuals. So it is my honor to represent and present Donna Plecha. On the right is a Theodore J. Castele University Professor of Radiology, and Dr. Agata Exner as the Henry Wilson Payne Professor. Congratulations both.